All right. Welcome to Sunday Night Live, Monday Morning Live. And here we are on everything. Okay. Let me get there. Okay, cool. So as you all know, we're streaming on, where's the channel? Yeah. Wow, why is this picture so big? On Instagram, why is it so big? What the heck? There we go. What is with I don't know what's going on with Instagram, but it's got my face really big here. What the heck? Oh, there we go. There we go. Good. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Anyway, we're streaming on all the channels at Dr. Thomas Lodi, Dr. Thomas Lodi, except for X and TikTok. We're on at Dr. Thomas Lodi, MD. Okay. Just, I mean, if you're on, you probably know that. So it's a weird thing to say. And let's take a look at questions. There we go. No. Here's the questions. Gosh. Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. Here we are. So, and that's it. And as I'm sure everyone knows about our groups now. We got the CFC groups, the Parasite group, and the Health and Healing group. And in those groups, we can interact. We meet twice a week for the CFC group, and once a week for the Parasites, and every other week for the Health and Healing group. And it's basically a question and answer. I just answer questions, but I can interact. I can answer. So if I'm not clear on what you're asking or anything, then I can, we can dialogue. I can figure out what you're asking and give a more specific, what do you call it? I gotta look at this post quick. I gotta look at the I can be more specific. Like right now, if you ask a question on this live stream and I can't interact with you yet, and I didn't get all the information, and I can't ask you. So that's so I'm okay on Instagram now, Andy. Okay, good. All right, now so let's just get into it. And who's number one here? This is Michelle, and the question is regarding breast CFCs. Are red light and PEMF good for a breast tumor? Unknown if it is CFC, no biopsy, only mammogram and ultrasound. Lab work unremarkable. Is fasting advised with the BMI 16? Yeah, so no, fasting is not advised with a BMI of 16.9. In fact, anything below 17.5, and some people would say 18.5, you should not fast. So that if you want to fast, you need to probably eat for a month or two of really healthy food and get some weight. Because remember, on fasting, what you're doing is you're changing from external source of fuel, which is glucose. It's in everything. You're changing from an external source of fuel to internal source, and that internal source is mostly fat. It's a little bit of muscle, but that's for a short period of time. So you've got to have enough fat, and it's hard to say what BMI is perfect, and because I've had people fast who are we didn't measure their BMI. I didn't measure the BMI because I wasn't with them, and they didn't have it done, but they certainly seemed less, but they still were able to fast. However, just to be safe, I would not do it below 17.5. And as I said, some people will say 18.5. So that's that. And red light, remember, red light is for the skin. So if you want to take advantage of the light, then you should do the mid infrared. Okay. Which is better than the near infrared. Okay, remember the infrared are not visible. They're out of the visible spectrum, whereas red light is in the visible spectrum. All right. And it's the far infrared that is a detoxifier. It penetrates very deep and it gets stuff out of your bone marrow and the fat, your fat cells and things like that. So, but for CFC specifically, it would be the mid infrared. And it's good you didn't get a biopsy. And too bad you had a painful mammogram. But lab work is unremarkable, meaning that you're probably good health, and you may or may not have some chronically fermenting cells in that area. And regardless, I would do everything that you need to do as if you did have it, just to get back your, just to restore balance in your body. Because if there's a mass in your breast, that means there's definitely an imbalance, and that's how it's manifesting. So do that. And that's it. And so, by the way, if you join the CFC group, you'll have access to the program, the basic program that I put together for people to do. And that way you can kind of do it at home, and not at home, but I mean, you can in your environment, and you can work with a doctor locally. And because it's a lot of times it's very expensive to go to a center. So anyway, that's that. Okay, Michelle. And now Mimi. Chronic inflammation. Can chronic gastritis be fully treated and reversed? Yeah, sure. Any chronic inflammation can be reversed by removing whatever it is that's causing the inflammation, right? And so in chronic inflammation, we're never, it's not always clear what it is, although, one of the underlying causes that we know for sure is eating cooked food. And, because we know that people that, there's that study done by Luigi Fontana at Washington University in St. Louis, where they looked at people that were eating uncooked food, raw vegans, for I think at least 3 years, up to many years, from the ages of 18 to 65, I think, versus people who ate regular food in the same age group. And the one thing that they noticed is that the raw food had undetectable CRPs, C-reactive protein, which is a measure of chronic inflammation. So remember, chronic inflammation, acute inflammation is you get an acute injury and your body heals it. The way it heals it is with inflammation, right? And then the chronic inflammation is you keep banging your finger, and then now what it does is it develops. It has to protect itself from the chronic inflammation, and so the tissues start to get thicker and stronger, and blood vessels grow. All the things that that are you don't want to happen in CFCs. And to get an idea of what that means, think about if you went out and started raking in your yard, and you haven't raked in, let's say, a year. At the end of the day, you'd have blisters, and that's acute inflammation, right? And if you didn't rake again, probably three days it'd be resolved. But if you kept going out day after day, what would happen is you start to calluses, it gets thick to protect yourself from it, right? So that's how that works. And it's that. Oops, where'd the question go? Where is the question? Where'd it go? There we go. Whoops. There. Get rid of that. Okay. Good. All right, good. Okay. So, and let us look at the next question. So yes, so chronic gastritis. What's happening if you have chronic gastritis? Inflammation of the stomach is what gastritis means, and that means that the stomach is somehow being damaged, right? And it could be the food you're eating if you're taking medicine, stuff like that. You could have a dysbiosis, meaning that your the relative proportion of of microscopic organisms in your gut are imbalanced. You've got too much of one thing and not enough of another. And so if that's happening, it can also affect your stomach, because your stomach's part of your gastrointestinal tract. But usually a gastritis is more related to something that you're going directly into your stomach. Um, and and also when you talk about gastritis, you're talking about the whole stomach being inflamed rather than like a small area where you would have perhaps an ulcer or something. So the gastritis is just inflammation of the whole stomach. It's not a specific. So if that's what you have, I don't know if that's what's going on, um, but anyway, the way to heal anything, of course, as we know, is to let it not engage it, make it not work, right? And how do you do that with your stomach? Is you stop eating. So if you were to fast for, like, depending on what's causing, I mean, with the variety of things that are resulting in you having gastritis, um, a week, 10 days, most 2 weeks, it'd be completely resolved. And if you're not able or willing to do that, even doing a juice cleanse is giving a nice vacation, because you're not digesting difficult things, complicated things, so your stomach won't have to work that hard. And also the juice is going to be full of the phytonutrients that are really important, lots of magnesium from the green, and all kinds of alkalinizing minerals, which will get into the cells, because you don't want to alkalinize the stomach itself, because it's got to be acidic. Right? You've got to have the secretions in your stomach must be be at a pH of around 1.5 to 2. So you want that to be low. But uh, so when you drink a juice, the minerals in the juice, they penetrate into the cells, and that's how that works. And it'd be soothing. And you could do that for 4 weeks. So, and even just by eating, much less complicated food, like, most of us eat like several, different things, like depending on what you eat. But if you eat raw food, uncooked food, that would go away as well. But, um, but usually, people have some sort of starch, some sort of meat, some sort of, hopefully some vegetables. But it's all mixed together, and that requires, it's a very complex uh, biochemistry to actually digest all that. So decrease your eating, give your stomach a break, eat at least within 4 to 6 hours, and then stop eating for uh, 18 to 20 hours. And remember, the more you stop eating, the longer of the period every day that you're not eating, the body's healing and eliminating toxins. So eliminating toxins and repair. So that's also part of it. Okay, so this is from Fiona, and the topic is scabies. I've had scabies for 3 winters over 3 years, and finally I overcame my fear to take pharmaceutical products. Now I am taking ivermectin, which is difficult to get. Each day I take praziquantel, 50 milligrams, pyrantel, 50 milligrams, benben, benben, yeah, okay, benbenzil, uh, 150 milligrams 3 times a day, and always ivermectin 12 milligrams 3 times a day. Take it at the same time, and only in the last 2 weeks, no or little food, fasting before and after taking them. Today I took a break, increased the dosage, and ate during the day, and ate more food in order not to lose too much weight and to relax. But I wonder if this is going to be enough, or will I need to do chemotherapy? Would chemotherapy work better, or do I need to keep going as I am for a few months? Yeah, no. So scabies is, what um ivermectin is, is usually alone enough for scabies. So what you're doing is a lot. Fenbendazole and I don't, and the pyrantel and the praziquantel, that I don't know how well they really get scabies, but I know the ivermectin does. Now, what is I would if we were interacting, I would ask you, you only get it during the winters. So because scabies is going to be there until it's gone. It's not going to take a break for the summer. So I'm wondering why you're sure it's scabies that you're talking about, because that just doesn't sound it doesn't make sense, because it wouldn't be for one for winters. So I'm not sure what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing good with your eating and all that. So I think you're on the right track. But you yeah. But remember, after 3 weeks, take a break for a week and then do it again, because you don't want to have your liver work too hard. Okay, because remember, these drugs are not toxic per se. They're not what they call hepatotoxic, but what they are is they all require the liver for to be metabolized. So that means so when you're taking all three of them, or three or four drugs that require the liver, it's putting an extra burden on the liver, and so it gets kind of inflamed, and that inflammation is reflected in elevated enzymes, right? So by taking a week off, and then the other thing to remember is you're taking the alpha lipoic acid, the N-acetylcysteine, NAC, and either milk thistle or one of its derivatives like silymarin, and then thiamine, vitamin B1 for the alpha lipoic acid. So if you're taking those, on the 3 weeks on and the 1 week off, they help the liver heal, and they're very good. They really work well. And why is this? Okay. Now let's see where we are. The next question is, this is from Tom, and it's high dose vitamin C. There's recent conflict about co-administration of high vitamin C together with ALA due to ALA inhibiting the pro-oxidative therapeutic effects of vitamin C. Can you explain your view on that? Thanks. Yeah, there was a study that was published by Paul Anderson and a couple other people, and that's what they found. And I actually, read that study, and there was a lot of flaws to it, to the study. So, in my view, based on the way the study was conducted, you cannot conclude that. However, I haven't seen any studies to disprove it. So, the best thing to do is to, at this point in time, accept it as being truth. And then if you do, then you realize that the half hour of ALA is, if you get it intravenously, is 2 hours, and if you take it orally, it's 4 hours. So you put at least 4 hours between, and then you're fine. So, and you would do the ALA first. So, but anyway, I question the validity of it. In fact, I'll put that up. I wrote a detailed evaluation of that study, and there was a lot of flaws, which I think don't allow that conclusion. However, as I said, we've got to accept it for now. But So put 4 hours. So to do the ALA in the morning, let's, for example, if you're going to do IV, then it's only 2 hours. All right. So you could do the IV at like 9 a.m. and then start doing vitamin C at 11 or 12, right? And it'll be fine. Um, Not the other way around. Not the vitamin C first. And so that's what we started to do at Oasis, just based on that study, just based on the fact that uh, nothing has been published that shows that's not true. So just to be safe, we're putting a space between them. So it's good that you read that, Tom. And here's Vicky with the subject of cardiomyopathy. I'm only 50 and I've been dealing with cardiomyopathy and reduced ejection fraction since I was 27. I believe my underlying problem driver is my Epstein-Barr virus. They tested me for genetics and I'm negative. I'm determined to finding the root cause and healing. What can you recommend? Okay, well, so, well, I'm not sure what else you've done, but first of all, the genetics, there's no genetics for cardiomyopathy. So I'm not sure what you were tested for. There's no genetics. And in regard to genetics, let's consider that for a moment. Well, almost everything you look up now, you're going to find out that it says uh, 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 one of the potential or causes or influences is a genetic predisposition, and I still can't figure out what a genetic predisposition. Because the only genetics that, unless you have a mutation, okay, and there are mutations, but they only really account for about 5% of the population. So, but other than that, if you don't have a mutation, then all your genetic capabilities are how the body would adapt under a certain situation. You have the genetics to, for example, you've got the genetics to produce a liver, you've got the genetics to produce a kidney, you've got the genetics to produce every cell in your body. You've also got the genetics to adapt to situations. So, for example, if you're eating a lot of glucose because you're eating, potatoes and rice and bread and pasta, and you've got a lot of glucose, your genetics are to become insulin resistant to protect the body from absorbing all that. So that's a genetic predisposition. In other words, given the proper circumstances, the body will do that. So it'll become insulin resistant because of the high glucose, because insulin lets glucose in the cell. And so if you're insulin resistant, it's going to it's going to allow less glucose to enter the cell, which is what the body's trying to do. So you have a genetic predisposition to adapt and to heal, but you don't have a genetic predisposition to fall apart. There's no such thing as a genetic predisposition to fall apart, to develop CFCs. There's no genetic predisposition. There's no there's no genetic. Linda Sue, Dr. Lodi, your hair is black and your beard is white. Right. You know what's interesting about, excuse me, a lot of people are interested in my hair, and I'll tell you something. If I were 30 years old and my hair was purple on this side, shaved on this side, green up here, no problem. But because I'm older, like, oh my God, you're coloring your hair. What's wrong with you? So I'm not sure how that works. Yeah, I like it black. So thank you. And I wasn't trying to fool you. So anyway, a lot of people have been interested in my hair for a long time. Anyway, I like dark hair. I was born with it. I like it. So anyway, now, so I want you to know that there's no genetic anomaly that's going to cause cardiomyopathy. Because cardiomyopathy is basically that the heart, the muscle of the heart is losing its strength. It can't. It's being weakened, right? And as we all know, the heart is a circular muscle, right? It's not. It's very different than our skeletal muscle, because our skeletal muscle has the muscle has a tendon that connects to a bone, and then the bone is kind of a lever that that gives you it holds against the bone, and then you move it this way. The heart doesn't have a bone to hold, to act as a lever. So it's a roundish, I mean, it's circular spiral, actually, spiral shaped muscle. And what causes it to contract is the larger the volume of blood that enters it. So if a lot of blood enters, it's stretched this far, and it's a stronger contraction. The little bit of blood, it's a less of a contraction. So it's the degree to which the heart is stretched that it contracts. All right. And then there's a point at, like, for example, in heart failure, there's a point at which it's stretched so far it can no longer contract. It's kind of like if you view the muscle fibers like this, right? When they're being dilated, they're like that, and then they contract. Okay. So imagine you went out this far. There'd be nothing. You can't. The muscles don't connect, and so the contractions are slower. And because in like, for example, someone who's had high blood pressure for many years, their heart's been dealing with lots of volume, and it's worn out. It's been stretched too far. So that's different than cardiomyopathy, because cardiomyopathy is not due to the high volume, right? It's due to something that's causing the heart muscle to be damaged. And so we know that the cardiomyopathy was associated with the bioweapon injections. And, there's another, the well known as the Coxsackie virus, if viruses even exist, which they don't, but come on. Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Gosh, there we go. Uh-huh. Do I read these? Do I know? Yeah, I do read those. Uh, who's that? Okay, do I know if I read these? I do read these, and I saw. Is it Nessa Mills? I saw a little while ago you wrote fart, fart, fart. That was a comment you made. I'm just wondering what the relevance of that was. So I do read these. I can't, but I'm gonna and remember that the format is the first hour. I'm gonna answer questions that have been submitted previously. And anyway, so I'll get back to it. Yeah, nobody likes my white beard. Well, I don't like it. I don't like it because if you blow your nose, you got to clean it. If you eat food, you got to clean it. It's like an extra thing to take care of. So I kind of don't like that. Plus, if you're in warm weather, it makes you hot. So anyway. Okay. Now, so Coxsackie, I think it's the Coxsackie B virus. I can't remember. And we don't know if, we know that viruses can't possibly exist. But assuming they are, the Coxsackie was associated with cardiomyopathy. And which can be due to, again, a myocarditis, which is chronic inflammation, right? Myo means heart muscle, myo. Myo is muscle. Carditis, cardio refers to heart. So heart muscle inflammation, myocarditis. And so if you had it chronically, it becomes it's chronic inflammation over a long time makes an organ less functional. All right. So that would be it. But as far as I hope that's clear. there's no genetics for that. And you've had a cardiomyopathy since you're 27. So I'm wondering what's going on with your what happened at that time. So at 26 you were fine, and then 27 suddenly, did you have an illness? Did something happen at that time to you know since you're mentioning 27, it sounds like you were fine before that, and then you noticed that and I guess what happened is you just found yourself tired a lot, no energy, and you probably went to a doctor. They must have ultimately done like an ultrasound of the heart and found out that your wall motion was less and your ejection fraction. So they can do studies like that. That's what they determined, I guess. And they're saying Epstein-Barr. Epstein-Barr has not usually been associated with again, if the viruses exist. But Epstein-Barr has been associated with a lot of nasty stuff, but not with cardiomyopathy. So anyway, what should you do? You should do what everybody should do anyway, and that is do a nice cleanse, and do a nice cleanse, and then do a water fast. And especially for you, if you've got a low ejection fraction, you need to have medical or somebody following you. You can't. I wouldn't just do it without having any kind of follow up. So my book is actually ready. It's I guess we're going to put it on Amazon, and then I don't know. I want to get hard copies made too as well, but at least you'll be able to download the ebook soon. I don't know which any day, because it's finished and it's been submitted. So yeah, it should be ready soon. And but that helps you how to monitor yourself while you're fasting. So in a situation where you have a cardiomyopathy, you've got a reduced ejection fraction. You're going to be very sensitive to the volume of fluid, which is your heart. I mean, your blood. You'll be very sensitive to the volume of blood. And remember, what keeps one of the main drivers, or the main forces that keep your blood in your blood vessels and your heart, rather than seeping out into the tissues, is sodium. Right. So sodium and albumin is another one, which is a protein produced by our livers. But the main one is sodium. So when you're doing the fast you're not eating, so your glucose is going down, which means your insulin's going down, because your insulin is only there to put glucose into cells and other stuff. But so your insulin's going down, and when your insulin goes down, it takes its foot off the brakes of the kidneys, because insulin wants to keep sodium in the body. What doesn't want to? I'm talking about it as if I'm anthropomorphizing. I don't mean that, but anyway, one of the functions of sodium is, because wherever there's sodium, there's water. We're talking about blood, so plasma, that fraction of the blood that's not cellular, not red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. It looks like a liquid, but it's really more of a crystalline matrix, because it's got proteins, and it's just a lot of stuff in it. It's not like it's just a liquid water. It's got a lot of stuff, a lot. And so anyway, that volume is very much influenced by the amount of sodium. And the insulin, the thinking is that insulin keeps sodium in there so that you have more blood volume circulating, because you're going to be eating, especially, and you want to make sure, in order to eat and get the benefit, you got to have things circulating very well. I mean, that's just our reasoning for why that's happening. But and it's good. It makes sense. Anyways, but when you stop eating, stop your fasting, your glucose goes down, your insulin goes down, and you start urinating extra sodium, and with that goes a volume of water, and so you can get volume depleted. You can get dehydrated. All right, if you're not drinking enough and taking some salt. Now, in your case, because of the cardiomyopathy, that's more complicated. So someone's got to be watching, or someone who's medically trained needs to be supervising your journey. But if you can get a medical supervision and you can do that, that's going to be the water fast will eliminate stuff that shouldn't be there. Any non-essential tissue, and that includes, ultimately, on a prolonged fast, which I don't know if you could ever do with that. If you've had a, again, I don't know how much how reduced your ejection fraction is, but it's obviously enough to that you're well aware of it. And so that'd have to be done very, very carefully with other supervision. However, you can do a juice cleanse and just really clean out the body, get rid of all the negative stuff. Make sure you don't have, if you had your wisdom teeth pulled, which are on the heart meridian, then definitely they were pulled by a regular dentist, meaning they left in the periodontal ligament, which means you're going to have cavitations in the bone above that and below that. And those are on the heart meridian. So I would definitely go to a good biological dentist, and regardless of what the cone beam, the 3D cone beam says, regardless of that. Yeah, everybody says I look younger without it. Okay, well, that's great. But I was growing it because I wanted to, I remember having one before and it felt good, but it doesn't feel good. Anyway, my beard. How do we get, anyway. Oh, so the juice cleanse will, remember, you're drinking a large volume of like 3 liters, 3 quarts a day of a fresh vegetable juice with all the minerals in it, natural minerals from the plant, right? Because plants chelate, they chelate magnesium, calcium, all the minerals that are in the earth, in the soil, are, when they come up through the plant will chelate them either with amino acid or or some other organic acid. And then when you drink the juice, the chelated part, which is the organic part, will be absorbed, and it will carry in the minerals. So the way we really get minerals, other than salt, is from plants, right? So you'll have the whole variety of healthy minerals. You'll have all the phytonutrients. You'll have all the healthy carbohydrates you need, and all the amino acids you need. You just won't have fat, fiber, but you'll be having a large volume of liquid water. And so that'll just clean. So it's clean everything out, because a real good thorough clean. Do colonics and or enemas. Get your colon clean. Go to sleep early by 8:30, 9, regardless of where you live in the world. Okay, so if you're in Europe, and I know in Europe, like in the summer, I remember it's like 9 a.m. 9 p.m. It's still light. So. But even if you're in that situation, it's okay. Put an eye mask on or darken your room and do go to sleep. Make sure you get, live your life as if you were living around the equator, where you were having 12-hour days and 12-hour nights. So go to bed by 8, 9 p.m. at the latest, and wake up naturally. That's very important. Stop eating 5 hours before sleep. Eat only within that 4 hours. In other words, and moving around with cardiomyopathy, you might have less. For sure, you're going to have less energy and that. So you want to take care of that. So but you still want to move, and there are ways to move. One of the things I would recommend is that if you join our group, then you'll also be able to have sessions with Darren. Darren's a kinesiologist, a physiologist who specializes in kinesiology, which is muscles and movement, and he's a genius and passionate and inspiring people. But you can still, if you go to my website, you can find drlodi.com. You could perhaps find him, and then even get private sessions with him on how you he'll work with you with a Zoom and or some other way to be able to see you, and he'll find out your capabilities and give you the muscles that are movements that you can do, because you want to keep up your movement and your strength. All right. You don't want to just not move around because you have cardiomyopathy. You need that. It's for our health and our immunity and all sorts of things. So that movement. The other thing, there are ways to improve mitochondrial function. There's peptides like SS31 and MOTS-c. Those are specifically for the mitochondria. Heat, heat shock proteins can stimulate mitochondrial biosynthesis. Yeah, and there's lots of ways. At methylene blue, it helps mitochondria produce energy. There's lots of ways to increase uh, uh, mitochondrial function. All right. And so you want your blood to be clean. You want everything to be rested. You want all of these things are going to maximize where you're at. Now, the cause was, if you're 50 and that was 27, by now, whatever combination of things result caused that, they it's no longer the issue because now the heart has been operating at a lower, it's already there's some damage. Now that damage can be healed, as I said, to some degree with fasting, but again, you're going to have to do that. So yours is complicated. Find yourself a good doctor who's able to help you with supervise the fast, but you can start with a good green juice cleanse, colonics, and go to bed early and eat that thing and eat real food. Just eat, plants. That's real food. It's real food. It's real food. Okay. For humans, for flies, the real food is feces. So it depends on your species. All right. So okay, here's Karen. Diabetes is the topic. And my granddaughter was diagnosed with diabetes at 3. She is now 6. I know you say autoimmune don't attack the body, but what happened to her? And can we reverse it? If so, how? All right, Karen. So it's not autoimmune. It does. I mean, what's happening is there are antibodies, and they can, they can be aimed at parts of the body. Yes, but that's not. It's not like it's not. That's not what it's after. When the immune system is doing something, it's doing it because it's necessary. So it has detected something that we haven't. Just because we can't tell what's there doesn't mean it's not happening. My point is that the body is not going to just arbitrarily start attacking itself. That's not what happens. It's going after something. And of course, on a molecular level, um, uh, there are similarities molecularly. Because remember, molecularly, when things work, what happens, like if you just think about hormones, you've got to have a receptor and then you've got to have the hormone, right? Or anything, there's the ligand and that connects to the receptor. So that's how things work. So, for example, when we're talking about like Graves, which is supposed to be a autoimmune hyperthyroidism, that's just simply not true. And it's yes, there are elevated antibodies, yes, and they're extremely high. And you said, and you've got the hyperthyroidism. Two things, two distinct situations. And the reason, they're not distinct, they're related, but they're not related causally. It's not that the antibodies are causing it. What's happening is that is a response, the body trying to adapt to a situation, and the immune system becomes highly activated. And the reason I say that with certainty is I've had I remember specifically, I've mentioned this before, a woman with hyperthyroid. She didn't know she had it, just came in and was like highly anxious. So I examined her heart rate was rapid, her EKG was rapid, and she had an Achilles reflex, which was quick, and that's usually pathognomonic of hyperthyroidism, right? And it's just like a slow Achilles reflex is an indication of hypothyroid. A fast one is hyper. So she was hyperreflexic. She had all those signs on exam, and you could see she was really anxious. Then we did the blood test, and of course her thyroid panel showed hyperthyroidism, and then her antibodies were really high. So by definition, she would get the diagnosis of Graves, which is by definition autoimmune. But here's what happened. So we put her on iodine, like glue balls, 100 milligrams 4 times a day. That's a lot. Remember, when we're taking it to correct uh, iodine deficiency, it's usually either 12.5 to 25 milligrams per day. And it takes a while, but you don't want to give any more than that. And remember, iodine does compete. Uh, it's competitive in there, so it decreases the amount of thyroid hormone that the thyroid gland produces. It decreases it. So that's why it's often said if you have Hashimoto's, don't take iodine. And the problem with that is that Hashimoto's is really a deficiency of iodine. So you've got to take the iodine. However, you've got to be aware that during that period, which is about a year and a half for you to correct it, you've got to maintain a healthy thyroid function. And the way you do that is by taking a thyroid, like a glandular, which would give people the T3, T4. And if you're against glandulars, then you can take levothyroxine, which is 4, and then cytomel, which is a brand of T3. And so you can take the combination of the T4, T3 in the same relative proportions as you would have in the thyrovans, which is a bovine related glandular, or there's others that are related to porcine pig, Westroid. What's the one? I forget. I haven't used it so long. The one, the well-known one. Forget. Anyway, they're pig. So they're either pig glandulars or bovine, and then they even have sheep glandulars. But what they are is basically T3 and T4 extracted from animals. And the reason they can do that, is because thyroid hormone and a lot of insulin, a lot of hormones are very much the same in mammals. Just like when they say we have 99% same DNA as a chimp. What that means is that all the things, like a chimp has 4-chambered heart, 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, all these things that are very similar to us. But a cow has a 4-chambered heart. A cow has 2 kidneys. A cow has a liver. So there's a lot of similarities, and that would be the DNA. So anyway, one of them is the thyroid hormone, the insulin, and other hormones. It's called vertical. They're vertically conserved. Vertically means through generations, okay, or through, in this case, through different species. So different species will be having the same, which is why when they first discovered insulin way back when, and they started to use it with diabetes, they were getting it from pigs, right? And then what happened was, because it's mildly different, a lot of people would get a reaction to, because that mild difference is detected by the immune system as being not self, and you have an immune reaction. And then that's when they came out with the technology to splice the gene to make human insulin into a microorganism, and then the microorganism produces the exact hormone that we. But anyway, so with this woman with the hyperthyroidism and all that, we could put her on the high doses of the iodine. By the way, just to finish the Hashimoto's thing, so you'd be taking the glandular or a combination of T3, T4 for that year and a half or so while you were replenishing your iodine deficiency, right? And you'd be able to determine what was enough by your basal body temperatures, which we discussed many times. Okay, and so that way you'll be able to, on your own, evaluate your thyroid status. And you keep yourself euthyroid. EU is a prefix which means normal, healthy. So euthyroid, keep your euthyroid while you're replenishing it. And then after about a year and a half, when you've got enough iodine, now your body will be able to make thyroid, and you can wean yourself off of the gland. That's what Hashimoto's, they call Hashimoto's, or any kind of hypothyroidism. Now, in hyper, in the other case, but you give it definitely high doses. So that's going to do two things, right? It's going to, first of all, replenish the deficit because that's also related to a deficit of iodine. Okay, because we all have deficits, except perhaps Japanese who eat seaweed all day since they're 3 years old. But so replenishing. So with the hyperthyroid, you're getting a high dose that's suppressing thyroid output, and it's giving you're absorbing the iodine anyway. And so 100 milligrams 3 to 4 times a day is a lot. So normally when someone has a Graves or hyperthyroid, the standard of care is to put them on a beta blocker, which is a drug that blocks the beta receptors, and which have to do with which are very much located on our they're on our lungs and stuff as well, but on other tissues as well, but they're very much on our cardiovascular system. So by blocking it, your cardiovascular system is not so hyperdynamic. It slows it down. So that's what it does. So what they do is usually if someone has hyperthyroidism, they'll give them a beta blocker so that they won't be like this, and then they'll give them something to poison the thyroid, and then that's how it's treated conventionally. So instead, if you just give the iodine high doses, you won't need to give the beta blocker, because within not even 24 hours, within at most, they'll be normal. Their heart rate will be normal. They won't be anxious. They'll be fine. And then if you check their thyroid tests, even they'll be normal. So, but you have to stay on that. And then so their thyroid hormones will be normal, but they'll still have high antibodies. So by definition, according to conventional thinking, they'll still have Graves, which is autoimmune hyperthyroidism. So anyway, with this lady, we had to adjust her iodine dose. At first like weekly, and then eventually we got down to a steady state of there was 100 milligrams twice a day, or it might have been 50 milligrams 3 times. I forget where we finally got to, but her antibodies stayed really, really high. So by definition, she still had Graves. However, it was being controlled. And then one day, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, the antibodies went back to normal, because they were a response to it. They weren't the cause of it. And now that she got enough of her iodine, which was the problem in the first place, her body was able to produce enough, right? So, so that's why I say that. So your granddaughter was diagnosed with diabetes. So that's type 1 diabetes, meaning her pancreas is not producing insulin. So she's 3 years old now. So actually, that situation can be reversed if caught early. But you have to be you gotta have to know what you're doing. But if she was diagnosed at age 3, it means that she's been on insulin for 3 years. So her body, it's at the point now where it may be that her body is requires or is so used to the insulin. You see, so what happens in type 1 is the beta cells in the pancreas are damaged and become dysfunctional, and they're not producing insulin, or there's less insulin, right? So something is damaged. What has been identified, and there's a lot of evidence, is that is cow's milk or dairy, but usually cow's milk, and because the cow's milk is not human milk. And so people can develop antibodies to it because it's not human milk, right? It's not self. and those antibodies are there's some molecular mimicry, molecular sameness between the uh, the islet of Langerhans cells, the beta cells of the pancreas, and and the milk, and to the protein in the milk. So this autoimmune, it's not okay. It's what it is. It's an immune response to something that is molecularly similar to the body, and that's what's happening. I just want you to be clear that the body didn't just like, whoa, make a mistake and start attacking itself. It doesn't do that. So in this case, in diabetes type 1, they've been able to identify pretty much that it's milk. Now, you can't always, that's not always the case, because there are situations where this happens to someone who's not had dairy. But anyway, something else has stimulated the body to do that, just to be clear on that. So what do you do in her case? In her case, again, she's got to eat as healthy as possible, right? And of course, you're going to eliminate all dairy. You don't need dairy after you're weaned. You don't need milk after you're weaned. And you don't ever need cow's milk. What we do need is human milk. And for a variety of reasons, that can't always happen. And so people are substituted with cow's milk. What else? Goat milk, sheep milk. And anyway, those are foreign milks. And remember, the milk of each species is specific for that species. It will have, they all have differing amounts of casein, which is the main protein, right? And actually, it's the amount of casein in milk of each species. It's the concentration. It's the amount of calories from the protein correlate with the number of days until weaning, right? And so for humans, 5% of the calories from human milk are come from casein, come from the protein in milk. 5%, whereas the dog family, wolves, hyenas, dogs, is around 32%, and 38%, 32%, and then the cat family, like the leopards and lions and tigers, are up around 38%. And they're doubling time for their body to double in size so they can be viable and weaned is related to that. So, and the rat has 49%. The king of them all. The rat has 49% of its calories come from protein in the milk, and the rat doubles in size in 4 days and weans. So the more, but anyway, ours is only 5%, so we don't need a lot. So when we're drinking a milk from another animal or another species, we're getting stuff we don't need, and our bodies can fight that and develop antibodies. Just the way it works. It's cold. Let me turn down the air again. Okay, good. Okay, so but what your granddaughter has to do, and then so if you catch this right away, what you do is you don't start them necessarily on insulin. You can work. You gotta just work very carefully, because what you do is you get a fasting insulin level, and you want to see what their insulin is, and it's usually not zero. If it's zero, it's zero. But it's 1 or 2 maybe, or 1.5, which means you're still producing it. And so what you want to do is cause the body slowly to upregulate its ability to produce insulin. And you can do that. You can cause the body to upregulate its capability of doing anything. We've done that with people who have G6PD deficiency and can't get IV vitamin C, and we've been able to get from a fasting insulin of 4, uh, I mean, a fasting, I mean, a G6PD of 4 by getting increasing starting low doses of IV vitamin C, increasing to get a G6PD of 12, which is fine. So in other words, it's not that they didn't have the enzyme, it just needed to be required to make it. So you do the same thing with insulin. But she's at the point where, if you can, I'd like to, to talk with her mother, and we can see what we can help her at least decrease the need for it, or who knows? She's still young enough, and but they're probably just giving her. I mean, their answer is insulin, which makes sense because the insulin's low, but how low and all that. So there's ways of working on it, but we would have to. It really depends. I think 3 years we may not be able to reverse that, because you see, when you get so your body was low on insulin, so now you're giving it insulin. So now it's the whatever capability it had. If it had a very, if it was only your fasting insulin was only like 1 or 1.5, something like that. Now it's stopped making it completely, because it's getting it. If it gets, the body gets insulin or just hormones, and if it's receiving it from outside, then it stops making it. And so for 3 years now, her pancreas, whatever was not damaged, has not had to work. And so again, and when things don't work, it's like muscles, they get thinner. It's called atrophy. So for 3 years, especially in developing at her age, but again, she's still developing too. I mean, she's not old at 6. So, and I'd be happy to see what we could do if you wanted to, or if you could find another doctor who understands like this. Okay, so now we have Karen, and the topic is other. I am in relatively good health, and I've done many fasts and herbal parasite cleanses, but I would like to try ivermectin, mebendazole, and the third that Dr. Lodi talks about. Do you know where I can get these in Canada? All right, so the ivermectin, the mebendazole, and usually niclosamide, and yeah, are usually like either the mebendazole or fenbendazole are usually the main top 3 anti-worm, anti-helminth things. And so where can you get the niclosamide and all the other ones? In Canada, it's very difficult. Canada is very difficult, and the EU is very difficult, and UK, because they have laws about for example, the thing that was passed in Europe, and it's basically being carried out in Canada as well, is it was called the Codex Alimentarius, where they have decided that they're not going to have available for the public doses of supplements that are higher than the RDA, recommended daily allowance. And the RDA is usually very, very low. It's very low. I mean, for example, iodine is, I think it's 150 micrograms, very small amount. And the Japanese eat approximately 13.8 milligrams a day, milligrams. So that's what, 92 times more, a higher dose that and they live 10 years longer. So to say that, how does that work? But anyway, the RDA and the RDA for ascorbic acid, vitamin C, ascorbate, was, I think, 50 milligrams. And 50 milligrams is just enough not to get end-stage scurvy, but it's certainly not optimal. It's not optimal. So the RDA of a supplement is not optimal. It's the minimum not to get a deficiency syndrome, or to have a deficiency condition. That's like for vitamin D, way, way low. So, and so this is happening. So that's in the EU and UK, and then and it's very similar in Canada. And then they also won't let in medications that are not, and all of this stuff. they say it's for our health and all that, but all these laws about trade and sales is business. They don't want, and why do you think they have tariffs? Trump makes tariffs. What is a tariff? That means it's a tax. I mean, the country that's sending something in is going to have to pay the government some money to allow them to sell the product. So the product is not that expensive, but the tariff makes it that expensive. So all of these laws that are uh, uh, that are saying, this is not allowed, it's because of business. It's business. It's not for your health. That's the point. It's not because this is bad for you, because there are clearly things. Anyway, clearly, replying to Dr. Brian Artist, do I inbox? Wait, what do you mean by that? Georgina. Replying to Dr. Brian Artist, do I inbox? I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, here, the Dr. Artist show. Replying to there has been research and discussion around nicotine's effect on dopamine pathways, tremors, movement, neurological. Okay, I'm going to get to that in a minute. Let me just finish here, please, because that's very interesting. I want to talk about. So anyway, so there's a prohibition on getting these things, these antiparasitics. If you contact my assistant at hello@drlodi.com, she can help you get it. The question is, will it pass through the mail system in Canada? And then that's the question. Just like EU or in Australia, different countries that have these kinds of restrictions, will the what do you call it? Will the customs, basically post office, let it in? And that's where the problem is. And so sometimes I've seen people in Canada have had to have either a U.S. address if they're close enough to the border, or a friend over there. They have to cross over and get whatever it is and bring it back. I've seen that happen. So it really depends on Canadians' laws, because you'll never get even though these medicines are in the pharmacopoeia of Canada. I mean, they're for sale, they're available. You won't ever get a doctor who's going to write prescription for that amount. And then if you did, then the pharmacist would say, no, I'm not going to fill that prescription. So it's a bummer. Yeah. All right. So I've got to move on. I'm going to move on to the other to the questions that are happening live right now. Okay. And okay, so here the Dr. Artist show. Replying to the Dr. Artist show, Goga Petrosian, anxiety and panic attacks can have many underlying contributors, including nervous system stress, inflammation, blood sugar imbalances, mineral deficiency, trauma, toxins, hormonal imbalances, poor sleep, or overstimulation of the body. Some people notice temporary calming effects with nicotine, while others can actually feel more anxious depending on the dose and their sensitivity, which is why I never recommend jumping into it blindly. I usually encourage people to first focus. Oh, I usually encourage people to first focus on calming the nervous system naturally with magnesium, hydration, proper sleep, mineral balance, clean nutrition, breathing support, and reduce stimulants and inflammatory triggers. Reach out to me directly. I'll help guide you more personally based on your symptoms. So this is the Dr. Artist show. And where are we? Reply to Georgina. Yes. You go reply to Dr. Artist show by going to the inbox. All right. So wait, how did this happen? So Yolanda was saying, how do I deal with my... Right. That's very good, Dawn. It keeps the tag off your toe. I've received 100 messages today with Restream chat. I'm not sure what that means. Anyway, so the question was, if you've been on epilepsy medication for many years, you should always be careful introducing things like ivermectin, benzone, methylene blue, fasting, or detox protocols. So this Dr. Brian Artis is jumping in here to help me answer my questions. Seizure ability, intermittent fasting may help some, but it should still be approached carefully depending on your condition and medications. Water fasting is much more aggressive and should never be rushed into without proper guidance. Methylene blue, thyroid support, iron deficiency, and immune support, including natural killer cell function cell, need to be evaluated based on your full history. Please reach out to me directly so I can better understand your situation. So, Dr. Brian Artis, you need a lot of patients that you have to come on there and try to solicit patients? Mhm. And water fasting is dangerous. Can you tell me in what way? What are you talking about? By the way, when you say a lot of nice words here, but when you say there has been research and discussion around nicotine's effect, anyway, okay, the body's stressed and things like that, and you're going to give natural things like giving a magnesium supplement and stuff like that. So and so all the things that I said about the methylene blue and benzone shouldn't be done, right? And so anyway, Dr. Brian Artis, why don't you and I have a debate live about some stuff? For example, hydrogen peroxide orally. Let's talk about that. And also, let's talk about the fact that CFCs, right, which you probably call cancer, CFCs are only caused by snake venom and parasites, right? So if that's true, why don't you and I won't go with you, but why don't you take a vacation at Chernobyl, spend the weekend there? If you think CFCs only come about from parasites and snake venom. If that's the case, there's no way you're going to get a problem. You're going to get CFCs from that, right? Right? Right. Anyway, so I'd love to have a debate, but don't come on my live and try to take patients away. And Hammy, would you please take care of that, okay? Come on, have some class, have some ethics. You're gonna go. Hashimoto's and low thyroid concerns are often connected to inflammation, gut health, nutrient deficiencies, toxin. Yeah. And anyway, I noticed that you were saying on one of your posts that look, if you look at a tumor, you do a biopsy specimen, you look at that and you see that it looks like a egg sac of parasites. So I'm just wondering, are you doing biopsies in your office? I know that you're a chiropractor, so I don't think you could be doing biopsies. But people are bringing you their biopsy specimens or tumors, So I'm confused on how you got this information. A lot of things I'd love to have a debate. So let's do that live. Okay, you're on, dude. Thanks, Clara. You like the hair and the beard. Thank you. Incredible. Does constant farting signify that the liver is... Where's this question? Where was that? Why did it jump away? Wait, come here. Does constant farting signify the liver is struggling? Ever since my colon got stage 3, I'm farting constantly. That's why you said it. Okay, I get it. Nessa Mills. I am fasting constantly. Farting. What? Farting, I think. Yeah. Farting constantly for the first time in my life. All right. All right. So good point. So no, it's not from the liver. It's from okay, so gas, right? And a lot of gas is produced in our colons from the fermentation of uh, food substances, right? And we know that's carbohydrates that ferment. Uh, Proteins putrefy, different kinds of uh, degradation systems there. But wait a minute, this keeps jumping away. So ever since you got stage 3, so I'm not sure if they did any treatment or what, but what's happening is when you're producing a lot of gas, more than usual, because we produce a lot. Anyway, but when you're producing more, it means that you're not you're not digesting fully. And digestion is it's a it's a complex complex physiology and biochemistry, right? Because we have to chew, that's part of it. Dissolve it in the saliva. There are enzymes in the saliva. It gets into the stomach. It gets mechanically pushed around and broken down. It's also got there's some protein proteases break down protein in the stomach. The hydrochloric acid is high, so that helps prepare the protein digestion. And then it goes on to the duodenum, and so there's all kinds of enzymes produced by the liver, produced by the pancreas, and the border of the inside lining of the small intestines, right? So with all and the pancreatic enzymes, as I said, so it's a lot of things going on. And what happens to people is that after around the age of 40, our liver, our stomach produces less and less hydrochloric acid, and which means which is they call it hypochlorhydria, and it can be a problem because you're going to get poor digestion. You're also not going to be able to extract some of the nutrients from food that you would normally be able to if you had enough acid. So that's a very important component. So the one thing people can do after the age of or if they even if they're younger than 40 and they're just not well, is about 15 minutes before eating, take some hydrochloric acid, which you can get on any I'm sure iHerb or any place where you get supplements will have it. And it's either Pepsin HCl or Betaine HCl. And you take it like 15 minutes before eating, 10, 15 minutes, so that your stomach is nice and acidic when the food arrives, because that's how it's supposed to be. Ideally, the pH of our stomach is 1.5 to 2, which is extremely acidic. And then now it requires the coordination of a lot of other events. And as it turns out, our pancreases are tired. They've been overworked. We were talking earlier about cardiomyopathy and an overworked heart. Well, an overworked pancreas, because the way all creatures on the planet eat food is they eat it in the state in which they find it, right? So the animal that eats animals will eat the animal right there, right? Just eat it right there. And the animal that eats plants will just eat it right there. But we don't. We take it away and we heat it up until it's chemically changed. We alter it. But one of the things that happens is the heat from the cooking, whether it's steaming, boiling, it doesn't matter what it is, you get it above in Fahrenheit, you get it above 119. In Celsius, you get it above 40, 47, 49. Now you've destroyed the enzymes permanently. So it means when you eat the food, it will not go through an autodigestion, AUTO, autodigestion that it would with its own enzymes, right? Because functionally, we have two stomachs, right? Anatomically, we have one stomach, but there's the upper part where the food lands, and then the lower part where there's a lot of digestive work going on. But the part where it lands is the time when the most of the autodigestion will occur, right? So remember, every protein like in the muscles or anywhere, has proteases which break it down. And not to break it down, but it has to do with metabolism. And every fat cells will have lipases which break it down, and carbohydrates will have amylases. So that's why part of the way organisms biodegrade, they're biodegradable. So an animal dies. Yes, insects come and microorganisms come, but also there's also a portion of that is by the enzymes within the body. So the same thing. So when you eat a meal that's not been heated, and it's so that you still have enzymatic function, you'll have partial digestion occurring up in the upper part of the stomach, so that when it arrives at the pancreas has much less to do. And therefore, the pancreas can do some of the other things it was designed for, such as provide enzymes to systemic circulation. But it can't do that because it's too busy. It's got the extra burden because you're heating up all the food. Anyway, so any organ which is required to do extra work will, as a result, become larger to try to do, stronger, right? So we do that on purpose in the gym. You go to the gym and you lift weights, so you're overworking your muscles and they get larger. It's hypertrophy, and we want that. We like that. People want that. Whereas if you engage in like a normal life where you're lifting and picking and stuff like that, and different kinds of movements, climbing and stuff, you'll have good toned muscles. You won't have small atrophied muscles, right? Now, I just got distracted. So, what was that? We were talking about. Where was that? Got it completely. I lost it completely. Huh. Thank you, Gina. Thank you very much. Wow, thank you, you guys. So nice. Thank you. What the heck was I talking about? I go off in these segues and I forget the heck I was talking. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I know I was going somewhere. Atrophy. Stomach. That's right. Farting. That's an area back there. What a great subject. Now, so the thing is, the pancreas is not making enough. It's just is less efficient at making energy, making enzymes, and so you don't get complete digestion, and so you have things that are passing on. They can go to the colon, or they even before the colon. The microorganisms, but the most of them are in the colon. Will digest them, and depending on the degree of dysbiosis you have, which means too much of this and not enough of that, you'll have a lot of gas produced. So the more efficient digestion is, the less gas. And so for sure, you have stage 3, meaning that all that means, it just means that they discovered it in your lymph nodes as well as in the colon. But don't use their staging, because the whole staging thing is a misdirection. But clearly, your gastrointestinal tract is in trouble, right? Because it's a variety of reasons. So I'm not sure if you've had, what kind of treatment you had, if you've had chemo or what, radiation, surgery. So I'm not sure that what's going on there, but what we need to do is whatever's happened, we need to try to restore as much as possible digestive function, right? And so, the thing is, in addition to taking hydrochloric acid like 10 to 15 minutes before eating, after you eat, you take like a handful of digestive enzyme. And the company that I go to, that I don't have any affiliation with anybody or anything, uh, is I use Transformation. I like them because they have really good research. Their products are research. Like, normally, I don't see that kind of research. Uh, I don't see unbiased research. But anyway, so and they have different kinds of digestive enzymes uh, based on your diet. So if you're, depending what's typical in your diet, you can find on there which enzymes to take. Now you take a handful of them after eating, right? Because that would be normal, the natural physiology, right? Natural physiology. I eat a food, it goes into my stomach first, which is full of acid. And then as it works its way down through the small intestines, enzymes will be released. So I do the same thing to try to assist in that. Take the hydrochloric acid before I eat so that the food lands in an acidic environment. And then after eating, when it would go starting to go down into the small intestine, we take the enzyme. So this mimics that as closely as possible. So that'll be the best way to do it. And the other thing is chewing your food really good. Hopefully you're eating plants, especially with cold and CFCs, you're eating plants, a lot of plants. Just, chew them real good. And then make sure you can, help your pancreas out with some enzymes. All right, so now, well, so what are we? What about a fat fast? What is a fat fast? I don't know what that means. You mean eating just fat? How many days should you water fast for? Do you do it more? Do you do it more than once? In other words, take a break and then repeat. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, you want to remember when our cleansing and our detoxification cleansing needs to be ongoing because we're continuing to toxify and get wear and tear. So that happens. So it's just like you have to have a bowel movement several times a day. You don't just, oh, I had a bowel movement, I don't have to do it anymore. I got to keep doing it, right? You got to keep urinating. You got to keep cleansing. So fasting and juice cleansing and things like that should be ongoing for the rest of your life. And so the ultimate cleanse and restoring of health. And by the way, anyway, I won't talk anymore to Dr. Brian Hart's show. It sure is a show. But fasting and cleansing need to be done on a regular basis throughout the rest of our lives. And fasting, as I said, is the ultimate way to cure so many situations. Fasting has to be done properly. You've got to know what you're doing. You got to have proper supervision or help. And that's why there are fasting centers to go to. Like True North, there was one in California. There was one in. Excuse me, it's too bad. There was one in Costa Rica that's no longer there. But that was a great one. Anyway, they're around there. But, as soon as I get I'm working on getting some land over here, and I want to open a healing center, which will have, of course, fasting. But so I wrote this book so that you could safely do it at home, but you've got to have the right way to evaluate yourself. And then there are contraindications. Certain, if you have these problems, you can't. And I even give you a checklist. You can an evaluation that you can bring your doctor and have them, to fill it out to know if you're okay. Now, unfortunately, most doctors don't know about fasting, so they don't know how to supervise one or what makes what definitely makes someone ineligible and all that. So that's the problem. Um, so but anyway, should you fast? How many days? Well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? But it can be, excuse me. Uh, when I hear somebody fast for 3 days, I think, oh my gosh, you went through the hardest part and then you stop. Because it gets really easy on day 4 or 5 because you're past this crazy appetite. All right. And so to go through the hardest part and then stop, you it's a bummer because you could have now gotten some real benefit over the next few days if you stayed with it. Right. But yeah, so you can do any length of time that you can do, a week, 2 weeks, 3 days, 2 days, whatever, and then repeat it. Yeah. So if you do a long fast, you can't repeat it that quickly. So if you do a month or 6 weeks, then you would want to break the fast properly, refeeding properly, and then eat healthy food for maybe twice as long. So if you did a fast for 30 days, and then you might eat for 60 days or 45 days. There's no numbers to this. I just try to give people something to work with, just like a template, but you've got to fit it into your life and all that. But just to let you know that if you did fast for that period of time, now you need to build up your reserves before you fast again, is what I'm saying. But yes, it should be repeated. And, and we don't need this. Go away, go away. Yeah. Okay. Now, uh, excuse me. So Jill here is saying, replying to Linda Crow. I have almost your same story. Stopped taking the meds because they didn't make me feel better. They did more blood work and said, okay, you're doing great. The meds are working. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but so, excuse me, at 1963, um, how many days depends what you want to accomplish, what your situation is. So that varies, right? I mean, it can be, remember, a fast is 1 day without nutrients, not 18 hours, 1 day. You can fast 1 day, you can fast 3 days, 5 days, right? So, uh, it depends what you're trying to accomplish. If you're really, you've had a chronic condition for quite a while, you want to probably work your way up to doing a longer fast to try and so that it could really change everything. Itchy. Um, and yeah, so that's the answer. So you fast depending on how long you want, and then you fast for a period of time to restore your thing. But if you're doing a short fast, like a 3-day fast, you could do that once a week. I mean, you could do that, you know. So here's the I was excuse me, my gosh, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's several years ago. I'm not sure that I have it. I have stopped my MP thyroid, 30 milligrams a day in February. I feel great. I will be getting blood work in another couple days, another couple of months. What lab tests do you suggest besides the TSH4 and antibodies? Really don't. I don't suggest any because we first of all, the T4 and the T3 are the 4 and the 3 are referring to the number of iodines on the molecule, thyroxine. And we're iodine deficient. We don't have enough iodine. And because we don't have enough iodine, when the thyroid gland is making the thyroid hormone, it'll grab another similar molecule that does similar type work, such as fluoride, chloride, and bromide, because those are called halogens. So you have fluoride, chloride, bromide, and then iodine. Iodine is the largest of them. Anyway, the reason for the thyroid hormone is the delivery. It's a mechanism of delivery for iodine. So if you're iodine deficient and your T3 and T4 are maybe one bromide, two chlorides, and an iodine, or something, whatever combination of it, it's still not performing the function it needs to. It doesn't have the iodine. So your blood test could be normal, your T3 and T4 are okay, but they're not functional, so they're not okay. And the only way to know what they're referring, what the T3 and T4 is, would be to do a mass spectrometry, which is able to look at the different atoms and tell you exactly what a substance is, So they would tell us that. So that's not done. You just get a T4 and T3. And as a result, it's not helpful in determining your thyroid function. So what is helpful is as long as you don't have, if you're not infected or you're a menstruating woman and it's the middle of your cycle, because there's a couple of days in there when a woman ovulates, that body temperature goes up. But other than that, you can rely on your basal body temperature, which is the temperature in your armpit in the mornings when you wake up before you move around. And you take the average of those over 5 days. And if you're below 97.8 with Fahrenheit and 36.6, 36.8 with Celsius, if you're below that, then that means you are functionally hypothyroid. You don't have enough thyroid. And thyroid, as you know, is not only important in regulating metabolism, right? Regulating energy output, right? How much energy you have, because hyperthyroid and hypothyroid. So it's not only important in that, it also it's a very powerful modulator of the immune system. So, and it also it's interactive with the adrenal glands, so it's part of a whole symphony of things that are going on. And so you want to have a healthy thyroid function. But what I'm saying is you can't trust the T3 and the T4. And then the antibodies, so what would you do? You're basically going to do your basal body temperatures and take enough of a thyroid supplement or thyroid to keep you at a healthy physiological rate while you replace the iodine. But you have to replace the iodine, because if you don't, then your thyroid gland will never be able to produce adequate amounts of healthy, functional thyroid hormone. So you have to do that for about a year and a half. And so for example, if you were to take 25 milligrams of iodoral glucose a day, after a year or so, and then you can wean yourself off it. You can now just take the 12.5 milligrams a day, which is good maintenance, unless you start, eating a lot of seaweed, which most people don't. Most non-Japanese, most American and Europeans don't eat a lot of sea vegetables. But anyway, and you can look at the antibodies later, later on. I mean, don't even worry about them. As long as you can get yourself as your healthy thyroid function, and you keep it that way for a few years, the antibodies will go back to normal, because they're no longer trying to correct something, right? Thank you, caring. That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I exactly. I agree. It's my heart and not my beard. I know. It's the story. Um, yeah. Okay, cool, cool. Here's Alexis. Hi, Dr. Lodi from X. Is it essential to take potassium on extended fast? I'm on day 14 and feeling slightly off, taking 300 milligrams of magnesium and plenty of pink salt, also taking a dose of creatine. All right, so you don't really, I really want my book to come out already. You don't really need the creatine. And you don't want to take anything that's going to stimulate digestion. Uh, so what I recommend is the Himalayan or Celtic sea salt, because you've got to get the sodium. Because if you're not feeling right, a lot of times what it's due to is the not enough blood volume because not enough sodium. So you've got to keep that straight. And like a half teaspoon in glass of water twice a day, or even a teaspoon of salt once or twice a day will keep that right. But there are different kinds of sea ocean derived minerals, and there's also shale derived minerals, which is shale is like the organic upper layers of places where forests or lots of plants have been are in the ground. You know, almost it's almost like, I mean, not it's not oil, but I mean it's just there's a lot of minerals in it. And so Dr. What's his name? Wallace, you know, who Dead Doctors Don't Lie. It's a great, go on, listen to his YouTube. I think he's got the audio version on you. There was only an audio version. I don't ever remember hearing or seeing a visual one, but it's great. He talks about minerals. It's very, very important. But so you can get them there, but you can also get them from sea vegetables. So seawater. So there's a couple of good products out there. The one that I mentioned in the book is called Clinton. You know, and not that I have a relationship with them or endorse them or anything. I'm just telling you that it's got like 92 minerals, all the. So if you're getting the sea salt or Celtic salt, and then you're augmenting also with the Clinton, you'll be fine. You'll be you'll be fine as long as you keep your, you know. And I teach you how to evaluate yourself with orthostatic vital signs and what equipment to get so that you can monitor that. So if you're not feeling good on day 14, it's usually because you might not be getting enough enough circulating volume. You might be some degree uh dehydrated, right? So it's but feeling slightly off. So that's it. And the other one is making sure that you're getting enough movement and rest, right? And getting sunshine, getting outside, and you know, there's a lot to it. And getting to sleep early by 9 o'clock, very, very important, especially during a fast. So but you don't but remember the body, the whole idea of fasting is to hand over to God. Is because fasting is a we are mind body spirit complex, and what we're saying is it's it's a spiritual, psychological, and physical process. Physically, you're not taking in nutrients, just water and some minerals, but you're not interfering at all because the healing process is way more complicated than we could ever even begin to understand. Okay, so we allow it. So anything we're doing to interfere. So and the way we know we're not interfering is by we're measuring our glucose and our ketones, and we know we're not eating it, and doing our checking our blood pressure and pulse in 3 different positions. So we can do that and evaluate it. But anything that might, like creatine, you know, which is not, now we're talking about, it's going to require digestion. So we don't want to stimulate the digestive process. and we don't want to change ketosis, right? So that's why we're measuring ketones, we're measuring glucose, and we don't want to stimulate, because if we don't do that, then we're allowing the body to do what it knows how to do. We don't know what to do. We don't know. We can't even comprehend 24/0 septillion, 37 to 50 to 100 septillion chemical reactions every second. We can't even comprehend what that means. And each reaction that's happening is happening as a result of the reaction next to it, right? So it's beyond. So we'll never understand it. That's why we have to do is just make sure that you're nourished enough, you've got enough reserves, then to fast. And then you fast and allow the body to do what it does. And it does it remarkably. So you have 14 days. That's beautiful. But again, I hope you're able. Okay, viruses don't exist. Can you explain this? This is from Joanne. Yes. Okay, a virus is by definition, it's a glycoprotein. It's got a coat. It's got a protein, glycoprotein, which is carbohydrate protein combination, coat or shell, and then in the middle it has some genetic material, either RNA or DNA, and then it's got a few enzymes, but it has no nutrient requirements because it doesn't eat, it doesn't drink, it doesn't breathe, it has no metabolism, and it produces no waste, and it cannot even procreate. Okay, so the way it would procreate is that it would get into your cell and edit your cell's DNA by putting in its DNA. This is the story. And then your cell then will then reproduce the virus, because the virus can't reproduce. So if the virus is not eating, drinking, breathing, has no metabolism, it doesn't qualify to be called life. It's not a living organism. It's not alive. It's not engaging with energy exchange with the environment, which is life. Life is, you're ingesting stuff, gases and chemicals, molecules, and you're converting it into energy and parts, and you have a separate, interdependent existence, relationship to your environment. See? So when you can no longer, take in and produce energy, then you're no longer alive. All right. So viruses aren't doing any of this, so they're not alive. So if they're not alive and they require other cells to reproduce them, how did it start? How could it have started? How could genetic material get surrounded by glycoprotein shell and have specific enzymes? So what happens is there's another phenomenon in biology called exosome, and the cells produce exosomes, which are exactly what we just described as a virus. They're just basically communication, biological communication. And so cells produce exosomes to the other cells around it, right? So, for example, if you ate I don't know, some kind of poison, and it went into your stomach and it damaged those cells. The cells that were able to protect themselves make these exosomes, which is a little information on either RNA or DNA. It's a fragment of genetic material. It's enclosed in a protein coat, and it's got enzymes that will that'll make it attracted to and dock on to the cells nearby that need it, or whatever cells need it. Right. So anyway, that's what an exosome is, and in terms of size and structure, it's exactly what we call a virus. So so the exosomes and the viruses are anywhere from 150 microns to 300, 500 microns. That's what they are, and they're both, so the exosomes and what they call viruses, and they're indistinguishable. And then there's no virologist that can tell you. There's no difference. So the thinking is that, first of all, viruses could not have just come about, because as we realize, they're dependent on your cells, or whatever cell that it's invading in virology. We're depending on it to reproduce it. So if it's depending on it to reproduce it, how did it get? So that means the cell produced it in the first place. Otherwise, how, you understand? It wouldn't exist external to this, and then it's going to reproduce it, which means it's originally had to be an exosome. So I think what we're talking about are exosomes. We're talking about cellular products that are produced by cells to communicate different things to each other. And that's how we do. Cells communicate through hormones. They communicate through a nerve conduction. They communicate through peptides. So there's a variety of ways that cells communicate, and that's one. That's one is the exosomes, and it's very important. It's a very important way, because it's basically communicating the present experience of that cell to the neighboring cells that are at the same time giving them good information. All right. So it's really difficult to explain the difference. I mean, explain exosomes, but I hope you understand. So the cell that got poisoned in your stomach, you ate something, will send out information. The ones that survive will send out these little exosomes to the other cells around, saying, do this, do that, giving to do this to protect yourself. So that's what an exosome is, and that's its function. And as you know, exosomes are being used now in medicine and dentistry. So, for example, we say, well, I've got hepatitis virus. So how do we explain that? Well, clearly they were exosomes and originally produced by the liver, HEPA is liver, by the liver, and so there must have been some other chemical or mechanical assault that resulted in the production of exosomes. Right. So we're never going to figure out all of this. We just have to know, what do we do know and what do we not know? Well, we do know that viruses could not have come about, and we do know that they don't metabolize, they don't breathe, they're not alive, they're not engaging with the environment. They can remain, in a dormant state for years, on a rock somewhere. So they're not alive. So that's why you can't kill a virus. What we're talking about are exosomes. It's the only thing that fits. All right. So anyway, you guys, thank you. Fantastic day. I mean, as usual, we didn't get to everything, but that's why you join the CFC group, or the Parasite, or the Health and Healing group. And also, if you're in the EU or the UK, we now have a Saturday, which is 4 p.m. for me, and I think there's been a change in the clock, but it's either around 9 or 10 for UK and an hour later for the EU. Right. So, and then you can figure out what that is for, like, South Africa and stuff. So, but anyway, that's available now, because I know that the ones that we usually have, which are like in the middle of the night for most people, so it wouldn't be of any benefit to join those groups. But now, if you join any of them, we can meet on Saturdays. That's it. So anyway, have a fantastic week. Sawadee ka, namaste, and aloha.